All pass. All right. Good evening and welcome to the Dexter Community Schools Board of Education meeting. Let's call this meeting to order. Hopefully do the roll call.
Mr. Alibray,
Here.
Mr. Arnold,
Here.
Mrs. Bruderly,
Here.
Mrs. Greatorex,
Here.
Ms. Kankos,
Here.
Mr. Lundy,
Here.
Ms. Zawara,
Here.
Mr. Naughton.
It was distributed.
We're on. All right, we're alive. Congratulations.
All pass. All right. Good evening and welcome to the Dexter Community Schools Board of Education meeting. Let's call this meeting to order. Hopefully do the roll call.
Mr. Alibray,
Here.
Mr. Arnold,
Here.
Mrs. Bruderly,
Here.
Mrs. Greatorex,
Here.
Ms. Kankos,
Here.
Mr. Lundy,
Here.
Ms. Zawara,
Here.
Mr. Naughton,
Here.
Mr. Patel.
Here.
Next on the agenda is approving the meeting minutes. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move that the Board of Education approve the meeting minutes from August 4th, 2021 and August 30th, 2021 as presented.
I would second. There's been a motion and it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, then all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. Okay. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I just have one thing, and this is my bad. Under board comments, I will just add a EFD update. So we just had a meeting, or they just had a meeting. So just maybe a number 2 EFD update.
I'll move that we accept the agenda as amended.
And I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda as amended?
Aye.
All those against, say nay. Okay, hearing no nays and all yays, the agenda has been approved. Next on the agenda, we are moving to school presentations, of which there are none. So then we come to our first opportunity for public participation. There were green sheets at the door that you entered. So if anyone wishes to speak, we would like for the green sheet to be filled out so that we can get back to you if you would like to hear a response from the board or the superintendent. And then it also allows for us to plan for how much time we're allotting. Speaking of time allotted, there's a maximum of 5 minutes for a total of 30 minutes unless otherwise notified. At this point in the meeting, those interested in making public comment will be asked to raise their hands and fill out their and hand in their green sheet so that the time may be divided equally. Each speaker will be asked to announce his, her, or their name and district of residence and indicate if he, she, or they represent any organization or agency. No person may speak more than once on the same subject during a single meeting. Those wishing to receive a personal response from the board or superintendent must complete the green sheet or the public comment form that's available at the meeting entrance and on our website. Are there any people in the public that wish to participate or comment? Okay, then we will move on to administrative and board updates, starting off with Dr. Timmons and the superintendent update.
We're up and rolling. It's been 2 full weeks of school. We do have a high need for substitute teachers, substitute paras, regular paras, a couple bus drivers, custodians. We're down about 40 people. Usually it's around 25 to 30 at this time, so it's pretty significant. We are working on with some of the health department guidance on symptomatic students and staff that are demonstrating COVID-like symptoms. They're recommending they get tested. So we've been working with a company to try to set something up at the Jensen Pharmacy with a 6 to 12-hour turnaround for families and staff. So it's a quick turnaround. We are also planning, if you look in the board packet, we have the Dread Watch out. We have the Wayfinder. And I want to congratulate Jane Montero on being selected Middle School Art Educator of the Year. That's a great recognition. She's a phenomenal teacher. So it's really nice to see our staff recognized like that.
That's awesome. Okay, so next is the board president update. And I would just add that we are going to plan on having a board workshop on October 4th. And upcoming, there is an MASB behind the scenes opportunity for the board members. And often we take community members that are interested. Generally, Julie Shoemaker headed this up, and I headed it up last year. It was all virtual. I would love it if somebody else would like to take the lead on this. It would be great if you want to do that. And that's all I really have for my update. So now we turn over to our student representatives to hear what they have.
So with the student update, Griffin and I are trying something different this year. I'm thinking the elementary schools, Griffin is doing the middle school, high schools. In regards to a student update to figure out what's going on in all the buildings. So I'll start off. Wiley fourth graders were able to fill out the application to become student council or state patrol. Beacon is having a ice cream social on Monday the 27th with a mom sale from 6 to 7:30. And Beacon is also having a fun run on October 8th. And from September 27th to October 1st, they'll be doing a kindness function at school.
So over here, the high school would like to emphasize its themes of kindness and empathy. And the homecoming theme this year will be cereal boxes. And for Creekside, Miss Montero was just named the art teacher of the year. And in Mill Creek, the 7th grade camp went off without a hitch, and 7th graders were allowed to have a camp this year. That's everything for the student representative update.
Thank you so much. That's great. We love hearing about all of the things that are happening in the district from the students. All right, so moving on to our next agenda item, which is our consent items. And consent items are typically approved in bulk. We have personnel, new hires, and our August budget report.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent items in bulk.
Second.
All those in favor of the consent items, approving the consent items in bulk, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now we're moving on to our action items. We're starting off with, as you were warned, to schedule the board workshop on October 4th. That work? Everybody good?
5 o'clock on the 4th.
Yes.
Okay.
So do we make a motion?
Yes.
Okay, so I would move that the Board of Education change the regular meeting from October, which is scheduled on October 4th, to a board workshop starting at 5 p.m. and held at the WISD.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion on the floor to schedule our board workshop on October 4th, starting at 5 p.m., say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. Moving on to the MASB behind the scenes. Sorry. The MASB annual behind the scenes at the Capitol Conference will be held September 29th, 2021 in Lansing. The cost is $105 per person registration plus mileage. This motion would be to approve all interested board members in attending the behind the scenes at the Capitol Conference. Generally, I think we do 10 spots, but I know that it's
Okay.
limited, so.
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround too.
And
So
it's
if you want to add any community members, just add that to the motion
Okay.
and up to 3 or 5 or up to
Okay.
a total of 10 maybe people.
So up to 3.
I would say, I would just put at the end of the motion where it says any board members, student representatives,
Or
or
community
community
members.
members. Up to 10.
Up to 10.
I move that the Board of Education approve the registration fee and travel costs for any board members or student representatives or community members up to a total of 10 participants who wish to attend the MASB Behind the Scenes Conference, September 29th, 2021.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion now that there's a movement in a second? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And that has been approved. All right, moving on to our MASB Annual Leadership Conference. The MASB's 2021 Leadership Conference will take place November 11th through the 14th at the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel in Grand Rapids. There will be virtual and in-person options, and CBA classes will be offered in person only that weekend. The registration fee is $349 before 9/24 and $383 after September 24th. Additional costs could include mileage, lodging, and meals if trustees opt for in-person attendance. So we would just be approving if anybody wanted to attend this conference, and preferably if you could make that decision sooner rather than later, so we could get the $35 discount.
How many people typically, I'm sorry.
So it would be open up to any board member that would like to, so we'd have 7 spots.
I can make a motion and then we can discuss.
Yeah.
if you want me to. Okay, so I move that the Board of Education authorize registration fees and travel costs for any interested board members to attend the annual leadership conference, November 11th to 14th, and to take up to 6 CBA classes.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I was wondering how many board members typically attend this? Have you gone?
In a while.
It's been a while. I think the first year I was on, I think that
3.
there were 3 of us that
Yeah.
went to the conference.
It's usually not, well, it depends on the tenure of the board at the time. So my first couple of years, there weren't very many. And then as we had new members come on, we had more attend. But it was 3 at the most at a conference so far.
Seems like it might be a good opportunity to connect. Since over COVID, we have, everything's been over Zoom.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really great, valuable place to go in the conference, and as well as any CBA classes. It's really nice to connect with other districts and see, how everybody's, what the difficulties are. Clearly, we at this point have a very similar situation, but it was always interesting to see what other districts are facing. Any other discussion? Okay, so the motion that has been supported is to approve the MASB Annual Leadership Conference, so the funding for it, for any board member who wishes to attend. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It has been approved. All right, moving on, we have our MASB delegate. The delegate assembly will begin Thursday, November 11th at 6 PM at the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel in Grand Rapids. And I know that we had a little bit of discussion at the last meeting about anyone who was interested in being the delegate, anyone can attend. We would just be sending someone, obviously, as our representative, our delegate. And we would need to choose one to represent the Dexter Board of Education this evening. I believe Jennifer and Daniel, you at the last one? No, no one?
At the last meeting, I was discussing the September 29th one.
Okay. Oh,
I didn't necessarily. On this, on action item 4, is that just 10 all 3 days, 11 through the 14th, or just that one night? Is there a different? Can you tell me if there's a difference in the events between the leadership conference and the delegate? Is that-
There's usually a delegate assembly for voting on bylaws, memberships, people running for offices, et cetera. So there's usually a set window of time for this part. So if someone wanted to just do this part of the conference, they could.
Okay.
I'm happy to do it if no one wants to step up. I just didn't want to step on anyone's toes.
I just have to check calendars.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind going, but I have to check calendars.
Is there a timeline?
Do we have time? I'm assuming we do.
We have to name a delegate by the 4th, so
Yeah,
a delegate and an
we have to name a
alternate, you could
Okay.
still choose to go.
We can name one and then name an alternate.
Let's do that.
You want to do that?
And who wants to be the primary, who wants to be delegate or the alternate?
Is anybody sure they can make
What's
it
that?
out there on one of those days?
I'm sure I can do it.
I mean, I kind
I
of think,
can go.
if there's, yeah, if there's no, I think truthfully,
Mhm.
there's someone who's been elected, even, I mean, by the community, that it's a longer tenure. And I wouldn't mind being the alternate, but I think a longer tenured person should be, that's just my personal opinion, you know.
We have a half day that day on the 12th. But I'm happy to go.
Okay.
So if you want to be the primary and I can be the alternate, or
Okay.
if you want to do that.
That happens. All right. I will be the primary delegate and you can be the alternate. Okay.
If you don't want to, I'm happy.
No, that's totally fine. Okay. So
Do you need someone to make a
I
motion?
think we do. You need to, so that would be a
So-
nomination.
I move that the Board of Education nominate Mara as delegate for the MASB Assembly, November 11th, 2021, and nominate Jennifer as alternate.
Second?
I'll second. I don't know if somebody else did, sorry. I didn't know if you had a question. I'll second.
yeah.
Nobody else did.
Discussion?
Okay.
Melanie seconded. Did you have a-
Yes, I seconded.
I'm sorry. Then I thought you said you had a question. So I-
No, I thought when you said second, it sounded like a question.
Oh,
and I
I
thought
actually
you had already
seconded
seconded.
it, but I made it sound like a question. That's why she.
Gotcha.
It's hard to hear with the mask, right?
Right. All right. And with the mic. Speak up on your mic. All right. So it has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. We are now moving on to our comprehensive course catalog update. At our July 22nd, 2019 meeting, the Board of Education approved the DCS Comprehensive Course Catalog as required by State of Michigan Pupil Accounting. Tonight's packet includes updated as of 9/2021. Comprehensive listing of all courses available to DCS students. Several courses have been created and approved by the board since July 2019, and the names of some existing courses have been changed to align with NCAA requirements. The board's approval of this catalog tonight will not create new courses. New courses will continue to come before the board for discussion and approval as usual. So this is just approving, this is procedural.
I move that the Board of Education.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Discussion after the motion.
Oh, sorry. Apologize.
We'll move it second and then discuss.
Okay.
I move that the board approve the attached comprehensive course catalog update.
I will
I'll second.
second.
Give that one to Melanie. That one.
Unless Jennifer wants it.
Discussion.
Yeah, I just have a question. It says here that there's no new courses added. But then in this, are we approving, it says approved courses to be added are below? Are
Those
these,
were already approved at one point.
okay,
We're just aligning codes.
okay,
So what happens is we have several reporting reporting areas. So we approve courses or the board approves new courses. Then what happens is we have to assign codes, but sometimes we get duplicate codes that conflict in state reporting. And then we have NCAA codes. They need to align with the NCAA reporting, and we need to make it align with IB and AP, et cetera. So this just cleans up where we had a little bit of some areas these are the courses that we had to clean up in the last 2 years.
thank you.
They've all been approved by the board. Some are changed, like newspaper writings now, according to NCAA, needs to be multimedia journalism A, which changes the code.
Okay.
What is the course bearing witness? What is that course?
That was approved last year. It's off the top of my head, I don't remember the course description, but it's more of a in-depth looking at issues and trying to take perspective and explain perspectives on different topics. It's really I remember the proposal. It looked like a fascinating course.
It's an odd name.
It is.
But
That's what I would
It
have
was
thought.
interesting, yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, it has been moved and seconded, so we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. All right, moving on. Policies at last. Our second reading. At its June 14th, 2021 meeting, the Board of Education approved the first reading draft policies of 1422, 3122, 4122, non-discrimination and equal employment opportunity, then 1623, 3123, 4123, section 504 of the ADA prohibition against disability discrimination in employment, excuse me, 1662, 3362, 4362, and 5517 anti-harassment. Neola had updated these based on changes in the law. At that meeting, it was suggested that gender expression be added to the types of prohibited discrimination pending attorney review. The inclusion was recommended, and these updated policies are presented this evening for a second reading and final approval.
I would move that the Board of Education approve the attached policies 1422, 3122, 4122, 1623, 3123, 4123, 1662, 3362, 4362, and 5517 for second reading and final approval by the board.
I second.
Any discussion?
Typos to clean up
In the next set.
on the next day.
Yeah.
There wasn't one on here. Did we clean up the compliance officer? We had Mr. Bruder still at Beacon. We just have to add him. I think that was the only thing. We had two policies. We just had to put the right title.
Oh, okay, you're
address.
right, that was in the
I think
set,
that
I
was it.
apologize.
So I would just ask if you can look at Melanie, on your motion,
Yes.
if just you could amend it with change typos. Fix like the compliance officer title. and that.
Oh, correct.
There's really nothing of substance to fix from what I remember. It was just that. We
Yeah.
had, they were in so many of them, caught almost all
It's in 1422 and 1623.
Okay, then I'd like to amend my motion to include the modifications to update the contact information in, was it 1422?
Yep.
And
1623.
1623 for the compliance officer.
I just have one question on the powers of the the overall document, is this a significant change at all in terms of, there's just a comment in here that the decision of the superintendent is final, is that the same as it's always been?
Yeah.
Is there still a second?
Yes, second, sorry.
And you're okay with the amendments?
Yes, second as amended.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Then the stated policies have been approved, final approved. Then we are moving on to our first reading. And it's September 10th, 2021 meeting. The policy committee revisited policies 2260.01, 5341, 5342, 5343, 7440.01, 8321, 8330, 8400, 8500. These include updates to existing policies and two new policies, all based on legal changes on those topics. They've previously been reviewed by the committee June 15th. They had previously been reviewed by the committee June 15th, but were brought back again due to a trustee turnover, pardon me, and elapsed time. These are presented for a first reading this evening.
I move that the Board of Education approve the attached policies. I'm going to make an amendment to one of them. Should I do that now during the motion?
Yeah, that would be cleanest.
The first policy, 2260.01, in the update that you are receiving, there are two missing phrases that were originally in our policy. So on page 2, I would update it right underneath the compliance officers, where it says the names, titles, and contact information of these individuals will be published annually. It should say on the district website. And that has already been corrected with the district, but it did not print that way. Also, under complaint procedures, you can see there is wording missing before that green section. And that is, apologize, I should have had it open. That should say, unless expressly stated otherwise, the term day or days, etc. So with those amendments, I would like to say that I move that the Board of Education approve the attached policies 2260.01, 5341, 5342, 5343, 7440.01, 8321, 8330, 8400, and 8500 for first reading as amended. I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing no discussion.
I'm not sure if it's in this policy or not, but I have one question about when there is a complaint filed, and in the previous policies, there's some discussion about the process that is followed, and one of which is that we gather people who have witnessed the issue. So you bring them together and discuss the issue and take their testimony, basically. That's all testimony. So I'm just wondering if students are called to provide testimony, are their parents notified in advance, or how does that work?
It depends on what kind of complaint it is. If it's a complaint that's a section 504 or ADA, there's one process. If it's a Title IX investigation, it's another process. If it's a discipline issue, it's another process. Those generally for efficiency and according to the courts and the laws, we just interview the students, and they're generally pretty brief interviews. If it involves harassment or potentially bullying, et cetera, then there's another process depending if it's going to fall potentially into the Title IX realm or not. So it varies, depends on severity of the issue and the situation.
Any more discussion or questions?
Yeah, that just brought up another
Yeah. that's fine.
question. So if the student's called in to bear witness or whatever, yeah, that's one thing, I guess, but what if he's called in and it's based on these different offenses, the policy offenses, if anything's potentially a civil case or like statutory case against the law, not just a policy against the law that can result in arrest, are his parents notified before we start talking to them or before the board or anybody else starts talking to them?
Well, again, it depends on the situation. Sometimes you don't find out until you're talking to the students what the situation really is or the severity. We, as a practice, if our administrators talk with a student about anything that could be disciplinary or fall under these policies, follow up with parents as a practice. Depends on what the issue is. If there's an officer involved or anything like that, the parents are called.
Okay.
And have we tried, I know, I think this is done sometimes, but I'm just wondering whether the disciplinary practice involves restorative justice techniques or,
Yeah, our policies
Practices.
require it and the law does.
Okay.
Yeah, there are 7 factors we have to consider on any discipline. And then we are, part of the law calls for restorative practices.
so you're bringing together the harm party and the party that created the
If
harm.
the
and-
victim is willing.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes it's not an option. But when it is an option, and if it fits to be able to help remedy the situation and move forward so that doesn't happen again, then it's an option. There are some times that there's not a good restorative option, depends what the kid did. But we always consider if that's going to be the better option. We try to minimize suspensions the best we can and keep kids in school.
I just think with everything that's going on in the, in our district and everywhere else, there's just so much polarization. So as much as we can encourage people to talk, I encourage that.
Okay, so there's been a motion and it's been supported and seconded. We've discussed. I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of approving for first reading, the policies presented, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, say nay. All right. The listed policies will move into second reading. Moving on, we are in our discussion items, which doesn't look like there is any. So we will go right into our second opportunity for public participation. In this second public participation, again, it will be for people who have filled out their green sheets. And this time we have, we have 3 minutes for topics to discuss.
So, Mr. Bruder, do you mind turning that microphone on at the podium? It's just a button on the bottom. Please, and thank you.
There. Each speaker will be asked to announce his, her, or their name and address the, and indicate if he, she, or they represent any organization.
It's on the back of the mic,
Or agency.
right at the bottom of the microphone. Yep, right there. Press and hold. Yep.
Good evening, board. Kevin Creech, I think y'all know me. Student at the high school. I was hoping to see an update on the agenda from the last board meeting on the scheduling process. I didn't see that. I hope to see it next time because As we talked about last time, it's a big issue with the kids at the high school. The other thing I want to talk about was I've been going to these meetings 4 or 5 months now, and I rarely hear us talk about academic performance and the mental health issues at the school. I remember a phonics presentation, one of the meetings, but when are we going to start talking about the issues we're having at the school with test scores going down and with basically a mental health crisis with our kids? I think it would be great to see a principal here every meeting talking about what are the current issues at my school? What am I doing about them? What are some of the programs we're putting in place to try and improve those things? I think those are the kinds of things the community would like to see for us to improve the performance of the schools and to show that we are, you're doing a lot of paperwork stuff here, and I see it every meeting, and I know it makes a lot of us angry because we want to see you holding our schools accountable for their academic performance and how are you helping the kids with their mental. So I'm asking you if we can put a agenda item on. It doesn't have to be every meeting, but at least let's talk about it so we can have it out in the open so we're all understanding what's going on. That's all I had. Thank you.
Is this on? Okay. Hi, my name's Connie Creech, and I have a daughter at the high school. I live in Webster Township, obviously, and something that caught my attention this last week with the superintendent update and from the high school principal is that we're hiring, or we're looking to hire, a part-time nurse for COVID testing. And so I'm trying to figure out what the plan of that is for COVID testing. Is this for all students? I guess I need more information on that. And how is this position being paid for? With what funds? Thank you.
Thank you for all those who participated. We'll move on to our board comments. Starting off with the policy committee update.
The minutes from our most recent meeting on September 10th are in the packet. We just went through all of the second reading and first reading policies that were reviewed. We had a lot of sort of outstanding policy issues that we've been trying to catch back up on. So we also did look at the naming school buildings policy, which has been on the list for a while. It was decided that that current policy does meet our district needs right now. And so we did not make any amendments to that, which is why it's not in your packet this evening. Future policies for discussion include the movie policy 2522. That has also been on our docket for a while, and we are waiting for information, legal assistance to write a better policy. This policy is difficult because we are trying to encapsulate a lot of different forms of media, not all of which have the same rating system. So we are looking for help on that, and we are waiting to hear back. We also need to review the wellness policy in the district 8510. We took a first pass at that in June, but again, because of changes to our board and our committee makeup, we are going to review that again. So those are what we're looking ahead to.
Thank you.
What was the second one you're working on? I'm sorry. What was the number?
8510 is wellness.
No, that wellness was 20,
2522 movie policy.
and then 20. I'm sorry, I got the numbers I'm looking at, but is it 25, 22?
We looked at 7250, the naming school buildings one, and we didn't make any amendments to that. So that didn't come here. And then the two future policies will be 2522, which is the movie policy, and 8510, the wellness policy. And those will come in a packet.
Will you be reviewing 2025? That's the media policy, one of the,
We're waiting for a draft from our
Yeah, as soon as
attorneys.
the attorneys get back.
We're waiting for legal guidance to kind
Okay.
of look at all of the media that's used in the buildings right now. So just looking at,
Because that one,
movies and podcasts, there aren't consistencies among them. So it is a difficult thing to revise those policies at this point.
also generally when we're looking at the policies that come up for review, they're usually ones that are suggested by Neola and they need updates and changes that have been suggested through the law, et cetera. This is one that we are looking at as a district. So that's why we are going to get more guidance from our own law firm.
right, is there, they give you like a date or estimated?
I asked them in the next couple of weeks, but they're going as quickly as, when I originally asked them, I asked them by mid-September. I talked to them last week. They needed a little more time.
Okay.
I guess I should say, I noted the 2522 policy because that is the one that's been sitting on the committee docket. So that is the sort of one that we're going to specifically target. And if other ones get wrapped up in that, we'll be able to see.
All right, so I'm going to move on to the EFD, the Education Foundation of Dexter. Meeting was last week, and the EFD Fall Teacher Grant Cycle is now open and accepting submissions. The grants, as we know, support educational programs beyond district funding, and an informational email went out to the principals and building directors on Friday, so that they can look at what their needs are and start applying for grants. Okay. Any other board comments?
I'll say, I know that elementary ed started NWEA testing, so you had to bring your headphones. Start doing that, so we'll get a baseline of where we're at again with the children.
Anyone else? Okay. There are several items in our packets for informational items, including the J. Montero got our educator award, the DCS Wayfinder newsletter, and the Dread Watch, which is pretty cool. So that's great that we're doing all this to keep us all informed. And then as always, nice notes. So the next thing is moving into closed session for the superintendent's quarterly evaluation. I would need a motion and a second, and then we'll do a roll call vote to move into closed session.
I move that the Board of Education move into closed session for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's quarterly evaluation.
I second that motion.
Okay, we'll go into a roll call vote. Oh,
Mr. Albrecht,
Aye.
Mr. Arnold,
Aye.
Mrs. Brutterly,
Aye.
Mrs. Greatorex,
aye.
Ms. Kangas,
Aye.
Mr. Ludney,
Aye.
Ms. Zawara.
Aye.
Looks like it's unanimous to go into our closed session.
And just so we got, for the control booth, just leave the Zoom going. Because we'll have to come back into open session in the meeting. You can just leave it on. All right. If you could take your mics, if you open up the front and just push the on off button.